What standards have you allowed to be set for you instead of setting those standards for yourself? Hey y'all, it's Megan May and this is Transparency, where we keep it real about our growing pains and all the beautiful moving parts of life that may not be the most glamorous but shape us into who we are today. So if you're ready for some introspection and evolution, go ahead and lock in by hitting the subscribe button, and if what I says resonates with you, then you can go ahead and leave a comment and like so I know we see each other. So I wanted to start off this episode by asking you if you are currently or have you ever been doing something that you felt like just didn't feed into your soul anymore. You was doing it more out of routine or because somebody had the expectation for you to do it. It could be something as simple as doing the normal task that you do in your household, or whatever you're expected to do at your job, whatever obligations you may feel like you're supposed to be doing in your relationship because you probably started off doing them and the person that you are with perhaps has this expectation that you would keep doing them, but it's really not something that you really feel fulfilled in doing, or it's something that your heart really isn't in anymore. Perhaps when you first started doing it, you did feel like your heart was in it, but now you really feel like it's just not aligned with who you are in this very age. And if you answered yes to that question, then perhaps you should do some self-work and self-reflection to understand what is it that changed within you and what do you want to do differently. I've had conversations with friends and with coworkers, and what I find to be a common theme is that oftentimes we do things because it's expected of us, or we do things because 10 years ago or 5 years ago we said we were going to do this, and perhaps that's when we started, but at the time we were passionate about it. We had a burning desire to fulfill that dream or that expectation. We had a desire to meet that expectation of our own will, but now we probably past that expectation and we're on to new things, we're on to bigger and better things, but we're still holding ourselves inside of this box thinking like, oh, because I said I was going to do this, I have to stay true to this. And I'm here to tell you today that that does not have to be the case. Quite frankly, if your heart isn't in it, you shouldn't be doing it. And I know it's probably easier said than done because there are certain things that people now do every single day. It could be your job, or it could just be anything that you do within your relationship, your households, your friendships. People create identities for you based off of how you've been behaving for some time. And when you try to switch that identity, you may get a little bit of pushback, or you may get a little bit of resistance because that's just not who those people know you to be. But you have to be true to yourself first and foremost. And then being true to yourself, you have to ask your question. You have to ask yourself the question, is my heart in it? And if you answer no to if your heart is in it, I think it's important to also know why your heart isn't in it. And once you discover the why, then you can proceed to create some solution for yourself and discover, okay, now that I know that I am not aligned with this and my heart is not aligned with this, now I know that I want to go ahead and make this a thing of the past. But what's next for me? And it could be scary to think about these things because sometimes we just have to really look at ourselves in the mirror, and if we've been living in this facade or in a disguise that we feel like measured up to the identity that we wish to have or that we've just held on to for so long, it can be scary to be like, you know what, this isn't serving me anymore and I want to try something new. Because what if that new thing doesn't reap the same outcome or the same benefits that you're so accustomed to receiving? But realistically, that doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Because what I've found to be true is that when your heart is in something, it naturally leads you to all of the possible benefits that you could be desiring, and perhaps that you never even considered but serve you very well. So in questioning if your heart is in something, I want you to really be honest with yourself and ask yourself, is it that you are doing this for you, or you are doing this for someone else? A lot of times I think that we hold ourselves to a standard that isn't even our standard. And it's hard. It's like our vision is kind of distorted because we're holding ourselves to the standards set before us, and because of the love that we may have for the person who has set the standard, we kind of feel like, yes, we are doing this from our hearts. But yes, you're doing it for your heart in terms of allowing it to lead you to do something to please somebody else, but you're not doing it from your heart in the sense of doing something that's actually genuinely fulfilling for you. And in not doing the things that's fulfilling for you, you are being a detriment to yourself, because oftentimes what ends up happening is that you grow resentment for the person that you are living to please. And that could be your child, that could be your parents, that could be your spouse, that could be your best friend, that could be whoever it is that you're living for. I think it's important to know that in following your heart, you are living for yourself. And while you may have to face disappointing others and the repercussions that may come with that, it's important to stand firm in who you are and what it is that you want, and what is it that's most valuable to you. That's what really following your heart means. And allowing yourself to follow your heart and leading your thoughts and your steps, and making sure that your behaviors align with what's burning in your heart is going to ultimately propel you in a direction that's the most rewarding. And what I've realized about those of us who aren't living according to our heart posture and making sure that our heart is in everything that we're doing is that we oftentimes face denial. We don't want to face the reality of not being true to ourselves. And why is that? Is it because we're afraid that we're going to be missing out on something, that we're not being true to the identity that we once shaped and once conformed ourselves to? I really can't answer that for you, but I do know that there's nothing to be scared of in changing your path in order to align with your heart. Because in reality, those that you love, that you might be living for in this moment, instead of being true to who you are and following your own heart posture, those people will benefit so much more from you when you do follow your heart. And I know this because when you're doing something that's not aligned with how you feel inside, you are very miserable. Whether you want to identify yourself as such or not, you are very miserable, honey. I'm telling you, like 9 times out of 10, you are pissy. And when I say pissy, I mean every little thing bothers you. You always irritable. You always annoyed. You want to be by yourself. You're easily frustrated. You can't explain yourself without feeling like you're speaking in circles and nobody understands you, because you're trying to explain something that doesn't really make sense. And it doesn't make sense because you're not coming from a place of passion. You're not coming from a place of burning desire. You're coming from a place that may be logical, but it just doesn't align with you. Have you ever met somebody, and you could possibly be this person, but have you ever met somebody that it seems like something's always wrong? Something's always wrong. You go talk to them after they get off of work and it's always a bad day. You go talk to them on the weekend and it's always something. Somebody always done did something. They not happy. They don't understand why life keep throwing them all these bad throws, and why they keep going in circles and just not feeling fulfilled, and all of this nonsense is going on with them, right? And you're wondering like, it sounds like you have a pretty hard life. But then if you ask them, what is it that you feel like you could potentially be doing that's catering to the way that you feel inside, they'll oftentimes make it seem like, oh, it's nothing that they're doing and it's nothing that they can change. And that's never true. That's never true. I think if you are one of those people, or if you know somebody that's like this, the best advice that you can give them is to really slow down and understand if they could live their life according to their terms, what is it that they would be doing? Who would be in their circle? Who would have access to them? What passions would they be exploring? What curiosities would they be exploring? I think these questions are important because they channel what's inside of us the most. When you really go off of curiosity instead of just logic, aside from the logical things like your finances and things like that, everything else, I think you should really practice following your curiosities, asking yourself why. When you're doing something and you feel like you're really just doing it because it's out of a routine and because you've been doing it for years or however long, ask yourself, why am I doing this? And if you can't answer why, your heart isn't in it. Your heart isn't in it. The answer should always be, because I love to do this, because this lights me up, because I feel the most happy when I do this. If you can't answer in any of those ways or any way similar, then you shouldn't be doing whatever it is that you're doing. Because if it's for money, then you are still going to be miserable. You may have a lot of money, but you'll be miserable. And not to, put anybody on Front Street, so I'm not even going to use any names, but oftentimes we see, even in Hollywood, or even if it's not Hollywood, but people that have a certain level of status, we see that they come out about battling the same type of issues that people that don't have the same opportunities and don't have the same access to finances or money that they have the same problems. And you wonder why, if you have all of this money and all of this exposure, how could you be so unhappy? And it's because a lot of times they're not doing things that light them up inside. Perhaps they just started off doing something that they enjoyed, and the joy and the thrill of it all came to a cease. It came to a halt because perhaps the byproducts of doing those things weren't things that necessarily aligned with them, and now they're more miserable than they are happy about being a part of this career path or being a part of this industry. It's important to ask yourself too, when you're trying to understand what it is that your heart is telling you, and if your heart is telling you to move, or if your heart is telling you to leave, or if your heart is telling you to pause and return at a later time. Ask yourself, if you were not to follow your heart and listen to your heart, how would you feel within the next 5 months, within the next 10 months, within the next 5 years, within the next 10 years? If you were continuing on this same path, knowing that it did nothing for you, knowing that inside of you, you are just dying piece by piece, and you're losing yourself, you're losing who you are at your core, you're losing the identity that you wish to have, you're getting further away from what you feel like your purpose is. Ask yourself, within the next however much time you want to give yourself, within that time period, if you were to continue along this same path, how would you feel? Would you be looking back on the past with regret? Is there somebody that you would be resenting? Is that person yourself even? I think it's easy to understand your heart when you understand what it is that you want out of your future. Because when you know what you want out of your future, it's easy to tell if what you are currently doing is aligned with what you want for yourself down the road. And if you don't feel like what you're doing is aligned, if you feel like the person that you are and the practices that you have and the values that you hold are not coming from inside of you, if there are just conformities that you've developed from the society that you live in, from the environment that you frequent, or the household that you live in, or the friend groups that you run in. Like, there's so many different influences in our lives that can shape our behaviors and shape the way that we are, that don't really align with who we are inside. There's so many interests that I know people don't even consider pursuing, because though that's what they stay up at night tossing and turning thinking about, they just feel like they wouldn't have the support of somebody else, or they feel like they've been told to go along this path, and this path is the path that will lead them to success. But nothing that they're doing along that path really makes them light up inside. And you really have to ask yourself, are you living for yourself, or are you living for somebody else? Because once you really recognize that everyone else around you with the exception of your children. I'll make kids an exception in this instance because, for one, I don't have kids, so I can't speak from the place of a parent. But I do understand, like, as parents, you make so many sacrifices for your children and what you feel like will be the best decision long term for your children and for your family. But aside from parents, there is nobody that could possibly influence your behavior and your decisions and the lifestyle that you live that don't have their own lives. So if they want a certain outcome in life to happen, then perhaps that's the path that they should take and pursue that outcome for themselves. Having you live that dream for them, regardless of if they think that the time has passed or whatever it is that they may think. Having you live that life for them, just for you to be miserable, for you to hate your life. There's literally people that hate their lives, and I hope that nobody that's listening to this is one of those people. But to have people really feel that way, like they hate themselves because they are doing things to satisfy the needs and the wants of somebody else who has their own life. Are you kidding me? You must be kidding me, baby. I don't care about none of that. If it's not aligned and if it's not satisfying to you, just leave it. Wash your hands of it. Free yourself from it. Just leave it. There's nothing that you could possibly do to satisfy somebody else that's not something that feels good to you that will pay off in the long run for you. Just leave it. I promise there's not an ounce of disappointment that you can put on somebody else that will not be worth the satisfaction of following your own desires. So, I say all this to say, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap this episode up because I really just had this on my heart. LOL, on my heart. But yes, I had this on my heart to say because I'm in a transitionary period right now. I'm switching my career plan and my career path to something that I feel like is more fulfilling for me. I feel like when I went to college and I chose my degree initially as a freshman, it did align with who I was. But when I transferred schools and I realized that the setup was different, everything wasn't under one umbrella anymore. I had to choose a concentration, and I chose what I believe was going to be the least amount of work and the most fun. That's really all I was basing that decision off of. And while that is some good indicators, those are some good indicators to know, like, okay, this is something that I will enjoy. Realistically, outside of the classroom and actually getting my feet wet in the industry, I realized that this is not something that I'm super passionate about. Not in the direction of which that industry wants me to take. Now, I do have certain passions that derived from pursuing that career path, which was film. If you didn't know, it was film. I have passions that have derived from pursuing that degree and that career path. But as far as going through the traditional steps, I really just made up a word, huh? But going through the traditional steps and following, like, oh, going from PA to whatever, like, I just don't care to do that. I just don't care to do that. And what made me realize that that wasn't the path that I wanted to take anymore is the fact that, for one, when I did my last job in film, I was PA for art department. I literally just was hitting up whoever, saying like, oh, I'm just trying to get my feet wet, I just recently graduated, whatever. And people were responding back with all different types of information for me to check back in at this moment or try reaching out to this person, and if they offered me a job, then cool. But I really was just hitting up whoever. Now, I will say that I did narrow down the departments, but realistically, I am a person that I enjoy the arts. I am not an artistic person in terms of painting and all of that. I do enjoy decorating things, but as a PA, I was doing administrative work and it was very boring. It was not fulfilling at all. And to be quite frank, the lady that I was working underneath, she was really just micromanaging every task that I was doing because she was putting her workload onto me and pushing for me to have them done within certain time constraints that just didn't make sense. Sorry, I feel like I got a lot going on, but it just didn't make sense. You feel me? Like, it's really important to know when it is time to walk away from something. And at that moment, I knew that it was time for me to walk away from film, because I just didn't like the uncertainty of it all. I didn't like the uncertainty of, after this project ends, I have to be back on the grind, hitting up this person and this person and this person and this person, just hoping and praying that somebody was going to give me my next opportunity. Now, if I was to join the union, allegedly, it would be much easier for me to land a job. But realistically, like, I just did not enjoy the process of it all. And having that experience, it showed me that if that was the direction that I was going to go, I needed to be a little bit more intentional in my choices. And in saying that I was going to be more intentional in my choices, I narrowed down the departments that I would be willing to work for. And those two departments was the camera department and wardrobe. Now, without going too deep into this story, because I don't want to go too far off kilter, I just wanted to provide an example. I realized that I can literally do the things that I wanted to do within film on my own. And though I would need, you know, some direction, perhaps some coaching, some advice, I feel like I've built a strong enough network to be able to reach out to individuals that can aid me in my journey of pursuing whatever it is in cinematography or whatever it is in costume. I didn't need to stay in that field just to develop the experience that I needed, right? I mean, we live in a world of YouTube. We live in a world of TikTok. There's so many things online that you can learn and apply to your everyday lives. So my passion for sure is storytelling. And I chose film because I enjoy telling stories, and I love seeing stories in a visual medium. But I also like to write. I also like to talk. Like, I really sat down and figured out what it is that I really enjoyed doing, and why is it that I chose film, outside of saying like, oh, it's something that's fun, it's something that's easy. What is it about film that made me really like get out of college and still pursue that route? It wasn't because I had a degree. I mean, I was told several times throughout college by people that was graduates that they were not using their degree. So in my head already, it was just like, having a degree is just to show people that you can accomplish something, show people that you can finish what you start. Generally, I feel most people do not use the degree that they went to school to pursue. They may use it if they go and pursue their master's or their doctorate. That might be a different circumstance. But as far as your bachelor's degree, many people don't use the degree that they went and acquired in their university. They just don't. And that's okay. But said all that to say that where I'm currently at right now is something that's outside of film. Do I still have a passion for cinematography? Do I still have a passion for costume? Yes. But you guys will see how those passions unfold for me down the line. I'm not making that my immediate thing right now, because I want to pursue every other interest that I have, the things that's been burning inside of me. And to tell you the truth, since signing off of Transparency in 2020, I started to feel like, in a way, like I let myself down. Because though I didn't feel like I was in the best space to talk to a camera and to share things with an audience, I genuinely felt like I was not acting in my purpose. I wasn't doing things that really was fostering my growth and feeding me and lighting me up on the inside. I was just going to whatever job, thinking like, okay, I just need money to pay whatever bills and to fund whatever lifestyle that I currently have. But I wasn't really doing anything that I was super passionate about. This really is what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about talking to people and creating stories for people, for them to see like life is not always the most glamorous. Like I said in my intro, life is literally a lesson, a long lesson with so many twists and turns, But I'm passionate about life. I'm passionate about family and community, storytelling. I love to love. I just get excited about doing things that's within the creative realm to allow me to express myself in ways that may seem out of the norm. And sometimes I express myself through certain mediums that I don't even share with anybody, because realistically it's not even about having it broadcasted to an audience all the time. It's just about being able to pour what's inside of me onto paper or onto whatever digital platform that I decide to use. But I enjoy genuinely having the freedom and the liberty to explore my curiosities, and that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about being open to exploring my curiosities and allowing people to feel safe in sharing and exploring their curiosities with me as well. And I say that to say that in choosing what is leading you from your heart, that's what you should really consider. Is what is it that's exciting to you? What is it that you would do for free? What is it that you are passionate about that you could talk about for hours? Those type of things. Figure out what is it that you literally could do for the rest of your life and feel fulfilled. And though I know that things change, like I said, sometimes we're here and we feel like this is the most important thing to us. There's nothing else more valuable. There's nothing else more important. There's nothing else that you can find more passionate than this thing over here. But in years time, or even in months time, you find that you've changed and this no longer holds as much significance to you, and that's fine. So when I say what is it that you can spend the rest of your life doing, take that lightly, because sometimes it's not always going to be the same thing. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But what I want you to really think about is, in this moment, what is it that you could spend the rest of your life doing? And as time goes by, if you feel like that no longer aligns with you, it's okay to change. It's fine. But really sit down and ask yourself these questions and find out what is it that you would be doing if nothing else mattered. If you didn't have to pay bills, if you didn't have to provide for anybody, if you didn't have to show up as whoever you've been showing up as, what is it that literally is inside of you that may keep you up at night, that you could talk about forever with your best friend, with a stranger, it doesn't matter who, that you could really just do and be so carefree and so just joyous and blissful in doing so? What is that thing or those things? And then I want you to really start considering making that a part of your lifestyle and see how it transforms you from the inside out. But I'll leave you guys with that. So I hope what I said resonated with you. I hope that you will do some soul searching and dig deep inside to really understand what is it that you may need to rid yourself of that no longer serves you. What is it that you've been doing out of obligation? What standards have you allowed to be set for you instead of setting those standards for yourself and living for your own purpose and for your own fulfillment, for your own happiness? I want you guys to really consider these things and make whatever necessary changes that you need to make so that you can feel more fulfilled and happy genuinely. So until next time, I wish you the best and I send you off with love. Toodles.